Hey guys, Sunday, May 5th of 2024. I want to do some cycle analysis on the dollar. I want to start trading the microcurrencies, which is the Aussie, the British pound, I think the Canadian. So I want to kind of see what the dollar could possibly be doing this year into next year. And this is going to be more like a speculative trade on those microcurrencies. But you have to watch the dollar and see what the dollar is doing. And we're going to just focus on cycle and natural cycles like seasonality, natural cycles, and spectrum cycle analysis. So those three are we're going to cover in this video. So without any further delay, let's get into it. So I see in the bottom here, this is what I call the dominant cycle. It's the 180. It's probably the most important one on the dollar. And this is a weekly chart. And I'm using data all the way to 2000-ish or 2001. So a couple of things to observe here is that when the cycles are down, you notice that the dollar doesn't go down. It just consolidates. Somewhere around here in the middle, what we call the trough, things escalate. And naturally, it looks like it gets a nice bounce or trending. Why? Because the dominant cycle is up. And once it hits a peak, somewhere around here, it gets choppy, it's blowing steam, it gets erratic, whatever, and a lot of head fakes. And then it makes a high here, and it's already halfway the cycle point between here and here. And then it follows a cycle that eventually gives in, as I call it. And then we hit a trough here, but the low doesn't really come, it comes here. And then the cycle repeats again. This time it goes further out. Sometimes, as you can see, it doesn't really pick the top. It extends and pushes higher. And then the cycle turns and it goes down. It's a trough. Then, like a magnet, it pulls it back in. And then we hit a cycle low or trough, right? Around April. And then this cycle goes up again. So that's how life is. That's the way God created everything. You go through some good times, and then you go through some bad times. You go through some good times, and you go through a rough patch. That's how life is. It's just going back and forth. Once you get older and all that, you start maturing, you start realizing, hey, you know what? I'm in this cycle where this just gets rough. All my friends leave. My kids are acting up. All this stuff happens here. But don't worry, you're not going to be here for so long. The sun is going to rise and shine again. And you're going to be in a good patch. Everything is good. You're blessed. You got good health. You overcome. And then it goes back and forth. So that's how life is. And it reflects with everything in the markets. It reflects with everything about everything. There's nothing new under the sun, as the Bible says. Everything is cycles. So we're here now, and we hit a peak, and that was at $114 high, and now this cycle is down. But what has the dollar been doing? The dollar has just been going sideways. So it happens. So it's nothing new. Look right here. While the cycle was going down, it was just consolidating, waiting for this big move and leg higher. Do we have any consolidation patterns here? Yeah, it was kind of choppy here, but it eventually gave in late in the cycle, but it gave in, and then it rallies up. So you get the idea. So we have one that just went sideways here that I could see up my eyes. Here, pretty much they've all been following it, except, the 2013 and then 2014 around here. That's when it went sideways. Another thing to note, Gann always looked at numbers. This is a little tip for you, Gannists out there. Look at 2024, look at 2014, and look at 2004. and see if you see any patterns with the dollar, what it has done in the past. From what I'm seeing, the dollar rallies on a 4-year, ending on a 4-year. This one didn't work out. It rallied probably in the beginning of the year, and then by May, it topped out and sold off and found the low around December. So this one was a down year. This one was an up year. I wonder what this year is going to be. Is it going to be a down year? Is it going to be like this one where it came in late into the rally, into the decline? Something to think about. And that's why I'm analyzing the dollar. So when I place these trades on these microcurrencies, because they're inverse, I get the best possible outcome, because we're not even sure this is going to play out. All we know is the dollar could bring a curveball. So there's a couple of scenarios here that I'm watching for the dollar. We are hitting a trough around, you could say July, around there. Pretty much July. I'm going to show you why June, July is significant on the dollar in regards to seasonality. This is just spectrum cycle analysis. This is nothing with seasons with the dollar. This is just spectrum. So it's indicating on the 180 dominant cycle that there might be a possible turning point here. Mind you, the dollar, we're already in May. May. Right here. So we got May, June, July. I don't think in 3 months we're going to get a move like this unless something crazy happens. But it's out of my, unless it's a black swan, then I won't rule it out. And the black swans are lurking. So, but I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to kind of focus leaning as like, you know what? We got 2 more months, 2-3 months right here where now this cycle is going to go up. What could possibly surprise people is that the dollar starts rallying. Typically, if you've noticed price action on stocks, they normally make a high and then they kind of retreat and then they kind of go sideways, maybe even lower. But then eventually they want to retest it. And this is what happened here. We pulled back. We did that 114 high and then pulled back. And then maybe, it may want to retest it again. And now the question is, if it fails, then there could be a possible down cycle in the dollar. But you see how it goes up? They retested it and then it fails. See? Then it kind of consolidates and it kind of goes sideways. And then it goes again and takes it out. You can see that we are in an upward trend, grinding slowly, but cannot deny it that it's grinding higher. Look at my arrow. Where's it pointing? Where's the last price? You can just tell that there's a lot of higher lows and higher highs. This is a downtrend, so you can see that this is the low we made in 2008. Is it possible that it may want to retest this high here? I don't know. Something to think about. If it's doing all this, then maybe kiss that 120. Something to think about if you're trading the dollar or you're trading currencies. So this is the 180 degree cycle, not 180 degree, the 180 cycle. You can see that I'm way too much into Gann. I see in degrees and I see in numbers. I sometimes cross them. And this one is showing somewhere around September, but the dominant cycle, which is the same thing, they just kind of offset a little bit. So there's 3 cycles, 180. It's a trough around September. You could say maybe July, depending which one you use. The next one that's important here is the, let me make sure I got the right number, is a 226. You can see that this cycle is going down and this cycle hits a trough around November of next year. So the cycle is down. So you got one down. You got this one that's about to bottom, which is 180. You got the 226 that is just starting to get his Momo to the downside. And the last one, which is the biggest one, but not as dominant, or you could say not as powerful, in regards to Bartel and strength. Well, you know, in regards to Bartel, it's pretty high. It's at 93.35. It's the 393. And this one just hit a peak. And now this cycle is turning down. And this one goes way into the future. Let's see. Yeah, it's not even showing the bottom, but you can see how it's been acting. And so far, we hit a peak somewhere around January the 8th. So this cycle is starting now to go down. So can it just be that eventually the dollar is going to be going down, losing its value? Very possible, but I also could see it, you know, before I'm going to go down, I'm going to fight and kiss this 114, and then I'm going to go down. And I'm not including Elliott wave theory. I'm just including, you know, the stuff that I like to watch, that I have an understanding and an edge on. So that's the first thing to notice. Another thing you could do is create a composite. All right, so what about if you take all these three cycles that you mentioned, the 180, the 226, and the 339, and create a composite of three cycles merged together. And this is what kind of you get. Maybe a cycle low or a trough around March the 31st of 2025. But overall, they're all turning down, and some has already peaked. And one is about to turn up in a couple of months. So to recap, the 393 just hit a peak and is going down. The 226 is further down from its peak around September of last year, and it has way to go. And you got the 180 that it's about to bottom and start going up. Which one is the one that's going to work? Beats me. But we could kind of get an understanding, you know, regards to the cycle and the seasonality of what could possibly play out with the dollar. What you want to keep an eye on is this 106 and this 100 level. This is your battle zone right here. Set alerts, because right here you're chopping. It's just chop fest. But if it breaks out above 106, it's a high probability we're going to kiss 114. So you could think of the inverse of what could be maybe stalling here, you know, gold or crude. I don't know, whatever the dollar affects. I know currencies are going to get it. So that's what I'm trying to play with, this micro currency with the pound, the Aussie, and the Canadian dollar. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So let's look at the daily now. Now that we have the weekly kind of like wrapped up and what the spectrum cycle is showing, let's look at the daily chart and see what's cooking there. Okay, so this is the daily chart, and I'm using just 5 years of data. I'm going all the way back to 2016. So I'm analyzing this data set. And there are two, I'm going to put it this way to you. There are two cycles here. They're, you know, are important, relevant. And then I'm going to put two other cycles that I call them sleepers. They're like, and I've been analyzing this and studying this. In spectrum cycle analysis, there's always the dominant cycle that shows up, prominent cycle. And then there's some that are creeping up that you don't even know. They're kind of like rising up in influence. And once they come to fruition, you know, that they start showing themselves, you start seeing it. So I'm going to show you the most important ones. And then the ones that are sleepers that I don't know could, you know, probably be influencing this thing on the unknown. So we first are going to start out with the 315, which is this one. As you can see it, how it take this peak here, a little off from here, the low. Hit a peak, came too early, kind of more like an inverse. And we're already going to hit a trough around June. Remember June, July? Remember those months, June, July. That's very important in regards to seasonality. So write a sticky note, June, July for the dollar. Write it down now. That way you're in the same page with me. So June, July. Remember on the weekly where I showed you the 180 degree, the ones that were down here? Not 180 degree, the 180 cycle. That was hitting a trough around July. Remember that? And then the cycle goes up. This one on the daily hits a trough around June. So June, July is going to be a hot area, hot zone for the dollar. And that's the 315, right? The next one I see that's important, it's the 124. It's a little more smaller fractal, but you can see it. One up here, kind of came in late. You get dropped low right there. Dollar went up, the peak here. Cycle went down here. You get the low there. The dollar kind of passed the peak here. Should have been March 26, but it grind higher. Now this cycle is going down to June. Remember June? June, July. Let's add our two cycles, the 315 and the 124. And this is the composite of both cycles. So always leading you to like June, July. So this is your bell curve. Not that exactly is going to, hit a cycle low. And I'm not saying it's going to crash. It's just probably going to go down. Maybe, test this $100 level again. And then from here, rally. You never know. I'm just kind of showing you the turning points of what the analysis is showing. Now let's go to the sleeper ones. The ones that I'm like, could this be, influencing? Could be a curveball. Let's start off with the 258. This one is going up. So if I see the dollar take out 106, I'm going to be like, wait a minute. Could it be possible that we're going to test 114? And this is the curveball that I don't see. Well, it takes us to July. So pretty much is an inverse to what the dollar normally is weak. So I want you to keep that in mind also. Somewhere around July. So this is the curveball one, which is the 258. The second one is the 219. This one, you're kind of running out of time. It's going to be this month where maybe it tests the 106 and then from here fails. So those are the two that I'm watching. And this one hits a peak somewhere around May. That's pretty much the end of May. So if we're going to be going back and forth and somewhere we kiss here, maybe push a little bit, but then by June, I start seeing the dollar just making lower highs and lower lows. Maybe it's all influencing it. And it could probably go down to at least 100. I don't think it's going to go down to like 91, but I know it's going to probably going to test these lows because this is the 100 level right here, and to see if the bulls are going to defend it again. Now, if that cracks, the high probabilities of us going to 89, 90 is very great, but we have to take out 100, meaning the currencies are going to rally. Gold probably going to be rallying, whatever is inverse the dollar. So that's it for the spectrum cycle. Now we're going to go let's go to another spectrum cycle that I use, which is I use a algorithm or an indicator called the RPO. Hey guys, so this is my spectrum analysis also on this my software that I use. And a couple of things here. I picked the three more important ones that are relevant, that show, some statistical edge to it. One is this red one. It hits a trough around September. This green one hits a trough around June. Remember June, July. And this one also kind of lines up with the red one. So this is this is a daily chart, mind you. So these are the ones on the spectrum. The difference between this spectrum, it uses another kind of I don't know if it's an algorithm, maybe it's like a setting or an indicator to study these cycles. And it's called the RPO, Relative Price Oscillator. So when you create a composite of those three, I mean, not that has to do with the composite, but it just kind of analyzes it a little different. And I'm going back and forth between this and the spectrum cycle. They're both spectrum cycle analyzer. One has a different setting and a different, programming to analyze it, and this one uses another kind of whole different system of how to analyze spectrum cycle data and extract, the movement of the prices and see if there's any kind of cycle or patterns that it could pick out. So I go back and forth and I'm just kind of testing both models. So when you create a composite of these three, according to my view, I think they're important. This is what you kind of get. And it's not perfect, It peaks here, it goes a little up, but then eventually snaps back, follows the cycle, very close to the low here. Little capitulation, and then it eventually goes down, and it's going down around June. So this is a combination of all these three right here. And then a little rally to maybe September, down November, up to like March of next year. So that's what this is showing here. So now we're going to go now to our seasonality and kind of extract what we could get out of the dollar in regards to seasonality. So far, I showed you what the weekly and the daily showing you in the spectrum cycle on the first couple of clips you saw, first and second. And then this one is indicating, this is just the daily, I'm not doing the weekly, where the daily is indicating, possible pullback into June, maybe July. I don't want to, narrow it down. I just like doing the bell curve, but it's somewhere in that ballpark between June, July, and then some kind of rally. And that's if the dollar's going to, follow it and play that out. So let's look at the seasonality and see what we could extract there. Okay, so this is the seasonality chart. I like to monitor and watch when I'm about to do a trade or kind of get an idea or a bias or just kind of see what's where we at. And this is a percent of months in which the US dollar has closed higher than it opened from 2020 to all the way to 2024. So if you notice, you've been following my videos, I believe in numbers, I believe in patterns. And into Gann theory. So I always use the 5, the 10, the 15, and the 20 to just look at anything in regards to data. So this is a 5-year, and you can see that May is very weak within 5 years. So that's 2020 all the way to 2024. So this is very recent what the dollar has done in the past. And typically is low in May. Flat in June. So if it gets to rally, it's just gonna not be really strong, but not really weak. Just kind of flat. That's what I call flat. You're right in the middle. And then July. Remember July? Remember I was saying June and July? Keep an eye on that. So right here, we see that May and July are very weak. So maybe within 5 years, you get a little tiny rally. Maybe we kiss 106, maybe a little higher. And then maybe somehow go back down in July. So that's using the 5-year. Remember that. Now let's go to the 10-year. Remember now, July. So July gets a 2 double whammy because July is weak and within 10 years. And July is weak within 5 years. So July gets 2 points. May kind of flat, not really going higher or lower. June a little weaker, so maybe, we could start seeing a beginning of, a down cycle, lining up of all the seasonalities. Remember, I was showing you the cycles on the weekly and the daily. Maybe this could play out. And then somewhere around July, start getting a rally. That shows all probabilities. I'm just kind of just pointing and picturing some, scenarios, just looking at the data that we just seen regarding spectrum cycle and seasonality. Because this is the second, component Now you're adding seasonality. This has nothing to do with spectrum cycles, 180 or the 226. This is just what has happened within these years right here. Let's go to the 15. Now the 15 is interesting because your 15 May, you get a little bump. So you're past the 50, so it kind of gets a little rally. And that's using data from 2010 all the way to 2024. Things start expanding, but June and July still remains weak, below the 50%. And you get this little rally in May. We may not get it, but I want you to focus on June and July. And July gets the most points because it's the most weakest, starting especially from the 5th year and the 10-year. And then lastly, we go to the 20-year. So between the 20 and the 15-year, we notice that May gets a little rally. Nothing significant, not kissing 90, but, above the 50%. So there could be a little rally. But then eventually June and July, picks it down. And then it kind of bottoms. And then from, June and July into August, September, it all depends. But mostly it's a little above 50%, so there could probably be a rally into those months. But the key takeaway here is that notice that June and July are weak, and within the 20 and the 15, May is a little stronger, but not by much, kind of mimicking the August and September seasonality. So now let's go to our other seasonality chart, and then we'll end the video here. I just wanted to focus just mainly on seasonality and spectrum cycle on the US dollar, so you can kind of get an idea of what we could be looking into the next couple of months and see if it plays out if you're trading currencies, gold, the crude or whatever you think the dollar affects, where we're probably going to be heading, in the next couple of months. Okay, so this is my last clip, and I want to just focus now on natural cycles, which is pretty much seasonalities. So we're going to have a breakdown here. So I always like to use two things to kind of verify my analysis and just kind of see if there's any divergence or things are not lining up with the data. So the annual cycle, using natural cycles here, which is seasonality, on the annual, which is 1 year, you've noticed that we kind of hit a trough somewhere around April 29th, rally or goes higher into June, and then pulls back into July, even bottoming out into October. So kind of like a rally, dump, a lot of chop, but eventually going down to October within the 1 year. So rally into June and then hit a trough around October. So that's the annual 1 year analysis of natural cycle. The fast annual cycle uses 3 years. So this is 3 years worth of data, and it kind of picked this high, it picked this low, not bad. It's just kind of more chop here, a little peak here. Now it pulls back into May the 27th, around there. Another little rally into July. It pulls back. So pretty much like a high and a pullback. And then I guess the ultimate will be September, which I noticed that September is pretty strong. But I'm not looking that far. I was just kind of focusing on June, July. And then a little dump into December. So that's using 3 years of data. This is using 6 years of data. And you get a rally, then a drop, a rally. So there's a drop around June the 12th. Pulls back. Then eventually into November. So this is all speculative. We take this one day at a time, but I'm just kind of just picturing what this is showing. So if you put it all together, one more we're missing, the annual and decimal. So this is a combination of the annual and a 10-year. You can see that it peaks here. Another attempt down into June, all the way to like July. So you can see that nothing is really all lining up. I mean, maybe the annual is kind of lining up with the spectrum and the seasonality, saying that June and July is weak, and then from here it turns around. But using the 6 and the 3 year is kind of, yeah, you could say it's not that bad. June, it picks a low here. July, this is August. So the 6 year picks a low around June. The 3 year picks a low around July. This red one right here, and the green one. And then they kind of, you can see more like a rally into September and October. Another thing that Gann, this is me speaking, reading his courses. He recommends looking at 10 years ago. And it looks like 10 years ago on May, it kind of rallied, it pulled back into July. So it looks like a higher high here. And then it really rallied strong. I don't know if this is going to play out, but it's just good to know, just in case we get some crazy strong rally in the dollar. For whatever reason, Gann said to look 10 years ago. So, I stick with what he says. And then he also says, look 20 years ago too, just to kind of get, some price fluctuations. And so far, it was not that bad over here. And it kind of peaks here around May. But this one's really drastic. This one goes all the way down to the end of the year, a low. So that's what that's showing there. So this is a little different from spectrum cycle analysis. This is just kind of looking at the past, but you're looking at two specific years, and that's again recommended. The 10 and the 20. There's another technique, but I'm not going to go into that because I might kind of spook the kids, but I'll leave it at that. So to wrap it up and to kind of get a summary on this dollar, put the spectrum cycle here. Couple of things. Let's get this out of the way. I have alerts at 100 and I have alerts at 106. You could probably put a Fibonacci, get your midpoint. It's range bound, so maybe you could go down here, test, the 100 between June and July, then bounce right back up. Maybe rally into, September, August, September, October, kiss this high of 114 that it made around, could say September of 2022. That's a possible, outcome or forecast. But either way, wherever it goes, you want to keep an eye on it. And I've showed you all the things that indicate where it could probably bottom out. And I'm looking, I'm not leaning anywhere because it's kind of hard to tell right now. But I have enough information and data that if I see price action dipping in this month into May, going into June, that the probabilities are high that we're probably going to, find a bottom or a turning point somewhere around June and July. And then, maybe short, the currencies or go long the currencies while the dollar is going, down. But always keeping in mind that if we ever take out that 106 from May on and just grind higher, that all the cycles that have been showing that is going down, the sleeper cycles are going to kick in and it's going to influence. And then we have to follow those timing points to see when we're about to kiss that 114. Hopefully this helped. This is just my inside analysis on the dollars as I'm going to trade, these currencies, the micro ones. So I kind of just wanted to share this information for those that, look at the dollar, want to kind of get an idea and a gauge. Okay, what's going to play out? What could possibly play out? Because we don't know for sure. And just take it from there. Maybe I'll do a part 2 more with more of the Gann technique, maybe throw in some Elliott wave and just kind of see what the Elliott theory is indicating where we at on the dollar. I'm going to sign out. Hopefully you have a great Sunday and I'll keep you posted are my thoughts on the US dollar.